that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello, everybody. Let's engage. So, it's mostly because I'm lazy, but until we get back to the classic shows, which is basically what I consider to be from the Star Trek original series to Enterprise, which I've already reviewed, but, you know, publication-wise, Enterprise was last. That was part of, like, the classic era, kind of, because they all, well, there's different things to each of them, and they all, you know, have their different flares. They all kind of feel similar, in a sense. They all kind of felt like the same sort of vibe. I don't know if that makes sense. Discovery, which is what I'm talking about today, Season 1, feels a lot more like a modern-day show, which has some positives and negatives to it. But it definitely feels more like something you'd watch today. So with that, it doesn't have the same flow, I guess, as the old shows did. Anyway, point being, I usually wear a suit for my Star Trek reviews, but I'm not going to do that for these. I don't feel like it. I'm lazy, and I don't want to. So we'll hold it off for the classic series, not for any of the new stuff. Now, to Star Trek Discovery, Season 1. I didn't hate it. I avoided it for a long time, and I knew absolutely nothing about the show, really, outside of a few key things. I find the first 2 episodes egregious. I can see why people stopped watching it. I think the first 2 episodes are pretty terrible. I don't think there's a lot of redeeming qualities to pretty much any of it. But if you stick with it, I think the show gets better and gets into something worth your time. But if we're going based off the first 2 episodes, I can see why people just gave up. Because that's where I heard most of pretty much everything I knew about the show came from those first 2 episodes, and that was it. I didn't know anything else. But people talk so badly about those first 2. Because first, you have to stomach the fact that the Klingons look like orcs. They look horrible. They look absolutely awful. It's one of the worst decisions that Star Trek Discovery ever made, was messing with the Klingon design. They look horrendous. It is the most disgusting abortion of a franchise, of a character, of a species that I love, that I've ever seen. Their characterization, not so much. But the design, the look of them is horrible. Now, that's not enough to make the whole show horrible, but if you were a big Star Trek fan, you're going to this show to go watch some more Star Trek, and you see that design, you have to really swallow your goddamn tongue and just like eventually I was numb to it. Like the first 5 or 6 episodes, it was pissing me off every time I saw it. I was like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But if you just endure it, eventually become numb to it, and then it's fine. You just have to deal with that initial gut reaction of, I hate you. What is that? That's an abortion. That's awful. That's disgusting. Once you get past that, it's okay. But you have to invest some time before you can, like, kind of endure the pain. To another franchise that I love, the Star Wars Expanded Universe, you have to embrace pain to be able to endure that. And if that's not enough for you, you also have just terrible writing and plot structure, in my opinion, of the first 2 episodes. Everything about it is clunky, everything about it feels off. It feels very rushed. Michael Burnham, the main character, I know her as Sasha from The Walking Dead. She goes and commits a mutiny against her captain because of the Klingons, and all feels really fast and rushed, and she's being rude to Surik, this science officer, and, at first I was afraid, because I don't like to listen to, like, right-wingers or anything, but, I had heard that this show likes hate men or whatever, or, very, And so I saw her being rude to this dude who was doing literally nothing wrong, just trying to show how she's better and perfect. But this was actually like a thing. This is actually like a character arc. I thought, that there's just gonna be, oh, Michael Burnham's right. It's okay for her to be rude and mean to other people so long as they're men, or something stupid like that. I started to get that impression because she came off really rude, but that was the point. You were meant to not like her. You weren't supposed to be in support of those decisions. Because a lot of times you watch shows today, and it's kind of a problem where it's like they're not being kind, they're being awful, and we're supposed to root for them just because they're the main character. And it's like that's mixed signals there, because you want me to like this person, but they're not being very likable. But this was actually a point in her character, so you were meant to not like that. But on top of that, and so that wasn't that big of a deal. It was just like, why is she being so mean to everyone? And then you had to deal with the Klingons. And yeah, I'm not doing a very good job. It's been a while since I watched those first 2 episodes now. But it was just kind of a slog to get through, and it honestly made me want to stop watching the show. But I knew I was going to do a review for it anyway, so I kept going. And immediately, as soon as Lorca shows up, the show improves significantly. Until it doesn't, but we'll get there. But basically, yeah, so she gets onto the USS Discovery. She joins up with that. And there's a whole bunch of storylines kind of going through. What I do like, most of all, is that there's kind of a through line. This is kind of like what DS9 started, which is kind of have like a plot thread throughout the season, which is something I really enjoyed. I found Michael Burnham rather boring, but she grew on me. I like her a little bit more now than I did before. Hopefully that improves as the seasons go on. My favorites, of course, were Lorca up until a certain point. And I also really love Saru. I like Saru a lot. I also really like Tyler. Tyler was great. He did some great acting, and then my favorite, I think, crew member and favorite actor to watch is Staten. I think that's his name. For some reason, the show makes it harder for me to remember names as other shows. I feel like other shows kind of like teleprompt the names more often. I feel like they kind of mutter the names a lot, so it's kind of hard for me to kind of like who's who. Like it takes a couple episodes for me to know everyone's names. But the engineer, or I guess he's not the engineer. I think he's it. I don't know what he is. The guy that messes with the spore drives and is able to go around. I actually don't know what his position is. I'm either stupid and didn't pay enough attention. I probably am stupid, but he was my favorite. I loved his personality. I loved everything about his character, and I'm excited to see more of him in season 2. He was a lot of fun to watch, and he was a great actor. He had some really great serious moments, really great funny moments. He was overall just like a joy to watch. So. There's a lot of plot threads. I mean, this show's like 4 years old now. I'm late to the party, so spoilers are probably okay. But I'm still going to save it for spoiler sections because, well, maybe there's people like me who never watched it, never gave it a chance, so I don't want to spoil it for you. But I'm just going to say if you don't like the first 2 episodes, stick it through, keep watching. This is the benefit of hindsight, the benefit of just being able to binge it instead of watching it week by week. Because if I was watching it week by week, and I thought that the whole show was going to be the first 2 episodes, I probably would have given up too. But because I got to watch it all in full in one sitting, I could actually appreciate it a lot more. So this is an instance where I think, binging is required. If your show doesn't have a strong premiere, which in my personal opinion it didn't, then you got to be able to watch the whole thing through. Because otherwise you're going to really like Breaking Bad. First episode, you're in. That's all you need, right? That's what keeps you hooked. I don't feel that Discovery managed that. But the show as a whole, the first season, was overall pretty good, in my opinion. I don't think it really trumps any of... I mean, maybe probably the first couple episodes of... or the first couple seasons of Enterprise. No, yeah, of Enterprise, of The Next Generation, and maybe a little bit of Voyager. But I still think DS9 starts out stronger with the whole Borg thing. It's probably also better than TOS. I don't even remember what the pilot episode is, The Cage, which is fine, but I think Discovery as a whole is... I mean, I guess TOS has Space Seed though, and that episode's pretty lit. I'm not gonna say it's better than TOS season 1. Maybe. No, I'm not gonna say that. It is better than Enterprise season 1 and TNG season 1, but that's just me. Now I'm not super smart. Like a lot of, this is not a diss on you, but a lot of people are like super. Like I'm a nerd, but like there's a lot of people who are like super nerds and know like all the lore's different. I love lore. Give me all the backstories and information. I care about characters, but when you start getting to like ships and warp drives and how those things are supposed to work, like I just don't care. I don't care. It's all fake anyway. None of this is based on real life, let's be honest here. This is not hard sci-fi where it tries to stay as accurate to science as we know it today. It's magic. Some of the stuff in Star Trek is just pure magic. There's no logical, despite the whole Vulcan thing, logical explanation for half the things that go on. As far as we know right now, time travel isn't even a thing that's possible. The multiverse theory is just that, a theory. We have no tangible proof that that's a thing. So that's the thing that comic books do. And that's the thing that Star Trek does. And so all that stuff, make believe. So I have no issue just accepting warp drive stuff. And, you know, there's probably some errors there that I don't know about because I'm not that much of a nerd. Again, not an issue. Like, if you're that down into it, if you're that into it, like, all the power to you. And that's awesome that you're so invested. But I mainly care about characters and backstory and making sure that lore continuity works. So, like, I don't want one story to contradict another. Ship technology slightly, as long as you don't have technology that inherently breaks canon, like, you can go warp 20 when all the stuff set a century after can't do that. That would be too much. Now, you kind of have that with the Spore Drive, but they do explain why no one else ends up using it moving forward. So it's okay. I give that one a pass. But again, overall I enjoyed it. It got a lot better. I still hate the Klingon design. I hate it. I don't like how the season ended. It was very abrupt again. It didn't really feel like a finale. Like, they resolve some things, they allow this woman Klingon to take control, and then hostilities cease. It's all done. It's over. And I just don't, I don't know. If you're gonna have the war, then commit to it. Do like the Dominion War in DS9, which took place over several years, several seasons. Felt like a war. You know, we focus so much on other things, you know, in this season. I mean, you keep hearing about the war and stuff, but you never really get to see it that much. So I just don't buy that it's as big as they claim it is. But overall, again, I thought it was pretty solid. I like that it's a through-line story. I like the characters. I do appreciate when there's sometimes you'll be on the ship, you hear a little like blip noise that goes on. It's the same exact blip noise that goes on in the TOS show, and I did notice it every time it happened. It's a very nice little neat thing there. And I like the special effects. It looks beautiful, but I also don't like how much more advanced it looks. Like, I get it, we have better special effects now, but it looks like objectively like more futuristic than TNG, which is supposed to take place a century after this. This is in the 23rd century, and TNG is in the next generation after. So it doesn't make sense why it just seems better right now. You know, and then like Star Trek Enterprise, they did the In a Mirror Darkly, and like they updated the ship. They updated the effects of the like original TOS ship without like changing it. And I feel like they could have probably done something like that, but I get why they went the way they went. It's just, you know, Michael also being a half sister, I guess technically adopted, of Spock is a little weird. I'm sure they'll address that in season 2, but it's like Spock never mentioned her. Why? Hopefully they'll be explained. Otherwise, it seems like a little bit of contradiction. Like, oh, he just had a sister that he never talked about. But yeah, overall, like I said, pretty decent. I'm going to talk about some spoilers. If you don't want those, get out of here. But it is 4 years old, so like... But then again, I haven't watched it, so... Never know. Um, we have the spores. Or sorry, we have. I just want to mention that Sarek is from Gotham. He plays a character on Gotham. That's where I recognize him from. There's some sort of dude that's just working on a ship in the background on the bridge, and I didn't Google it because I'm lazy, but he looks like the blue Power Ranger from Space Patrol Delta. So I thought that was fun. Sarek apparently gave Michael a Katra of himself. We saw this in Enterprise. We saw this with Spock later on. The captain in episode 2, Giorgio, she dies along with the Klingon leader, which sparks this whole revolution. Burnham is arrested, only for episode 3, Lucius Malfoy, the captain of the Discovery. And then he, takes Burnham back into it, and she eventually reacclimates into being a part of a crew again. Episode 4, we deal with spores and this creature that ends up dying, I think, but it's this thing that's able to use the spore drive. Episode 5, the Klingons capture Lorca, and this is where Lorca meets Tyler, and he meets Mud, yes, from TOS, played by the guy from The Office for some reason. I enjoyed him in here, but he definitely has a very cartoony and hammy performance. Cussing. Now, I know this is a minor thing, but it really pisses me off. This is continuity breaking, a little bit, because this is in the same time frame as TOS, right? Or like a little bit before. Star Trek 4, A Voyage Home. They're stuck in the 80s, right? And they're cussing left and right. And Kirk and Spock talk about, like, they don't do that anymore. Or they cuss, but not in the same way that we today do. They don't do it. They made it an established thing. They made it like a huge point that they don't cuss like that anymore. And yet here they are, cussing left and right. This is also a problem in Picard. Now I get it. Edgy. People cuss. I've cussed. I have cussed. It's not the issue of cussing. I've watched shows with cussing. It's that specifically in this universe, it's supposed to be a thing of the past. So it's like, but it's a rather minor thing. I just wanted to mention it because it does bug me a little bit. It's the same way, like, when you read a Star Trek book, they have their own cussing words. Like, they have criffing. Like, that's a Star Wars cuss word. So when I see shite, or other similar words in Star Wars, it just comes off weird to me. It kind of takes me out. Episode 6, we have Lorca being tortured for pretty much all of it, and then he escapes. Episode 7, we have Mud as a time traveler, or at least kind of. He takes control of the USS Discovery and keeps killing people again and again and again, resetting time to try to get the information he needs. It's a really fun episode. But again, his performance is very corny. And also, can we please have Jack Quaid from The Boys and the New Adventures of Superman, or the new cartoon of Superman, do like a movie where he's the younger version of the guy from The Office? Because they look similar. I'm just saying. I don't know if that's happened already, but if it hasn't, it should. I don't really have anything to say about episode 8. Episode 9, I thought it dealt with rape, but later revelations prove that's not true, but it does kind of imply that, and for what it was handled really well, even though later on we realize that's not the case. He was just having... Tyler was just having memories of somebody else. Episode 10. This is where stuff starts to get really interesting for me. This is where the Mirror Universe arc takes place. So they enter the mirror universe. Yes, the Terran Empire, you know. And there's a lot of good stuff here. This first episode, especially, is directed by Jonathan Frakes. Yes, William Riker is the director of this episode, and it's a really good episode. I really enjoyed it. This is even has continuity with Enterprise, the show, because it mentions you know, how in the Mirror Universe's past, a ship from a little bit into Discovery's future, because it's a lot closer to TOS, or it just says that a ship from like now, or around this time, gets sent back to the past, back to the Enterprise time, but in the Mirror Universe timeline, and that's, of course, the In the Mirror Darkly two-parter in Enterprise. Now, at first I thought this might have an issue with TOS, because if they're able to travel to this world, how come nobody talks about it? How come Kirk doesn't know about it in the TOS episode where he travels to it? But Starfleet made it like a top priority secret to delete all information about it, because they don't want people traveling to that world. Because, you know, like, what if someone loses a father or a son or a daughter or a wife, and they want to, you know, see their counterpart, you know, so they try to make sure that this information remains closely guarded secret. So it's a decent way of explaining why Kirk doesn't know about it in TOS. But then why doesn't Kirk say anything about it? Probably because Starfleet's like, yeah, Discovery dealt with this a little bit ago. Please don't mention it to anybody. And so he didn't. Also, Tyler's basically Tahiri Vela from New Jedi Order, where he has like two personalities going on. The big thing here is we learn that Lorca is from the Mirror Universe. He's actually Mirror Universe Lorca, who got sent to the Prime timeline. So like where how Kirk had it happen to him in TOS, where he replaced Kirk in the Mirror Universe. Lorca replaced Lorca in the main one. So I was really disappointed by this. Not by the reveal. I thought that was awesome. I love this whole arc of the Mirror Universe, except for like the final episode, because I thought that there was a lot of nuance in the performance. To me, it came across that he really did care about the crew. That, yeah, he's this Terran who wants to take over, but he spent all this time with this crew and their good nature and their love and their caring of him. Burnham's trusting him, calling him a good captain, him smiling but not like fully looking at her because he still has this goal in mind. It felt like someone who genuinely cared about all of them, but still felt he needed, or that he owed a commitment to the people back home, and so he's going to take the good fight. And yeah, a little bit of selfishness, he wanted to be ruler. But instead, once that reveal comes in, he kind of just becomes this stereotypical bad guy. Says, like, the only reason, Discovery, that you get to live is because Michael says that if I let you live, then she will be mine. You know, like, it's very... What's a good example of... It's like, if you've ever seen the Clone Wars 2008 show. Season 5, they have this Umbaran arc with this Jedi that just seems to hate clones, and I thought it was, you know, this episode was kind of showing the morality of it all. Like, you know, you can't just use clones as cannon fodder; they are souls too, right? Like, the whole idea was that this Jedi wasn't a Sith, wasn't an evil person. He just genuinely believed that clone lives don't matter. Don't get anything out of it. I'm just saying, like, don't take any. I'm not trying to make a statement. I just realized when I said it in that context. Look, I'm just saying, he saw them as assets, like droids. He didn't see them as people, and I thought that was a really nuanced things for kids to see. Only for the final episode to go, oh, I'm actually working for Dooku this whole time. It ruins all the nuance and the power of that arc, right? You know, instead of having him be a good Jedi, he just doesn't see clones as humans, right? So you have a bad person on the good guy's side. You know, there's some nuance there. You know, you could have him even be like Ram Koda from the Force Unleashed video games, where Ram Koda suspected that the clones would do something like they do in Episode 3, so he had like a justifiable reason to be mistrusting of them. But then you could have that like gray morality of, yeah, but they're good, they're kind. I don't, you know, like have the conflict. And in the same way, you have all this nuance, you have all this good character moments between him and other characters, only to drop it all and say, oh, it was all fraud, it was all lie, he didn't grow any attachment to anyone, he's just a generic bad guy. And I felt that that was such a waste of potential for storytelling, and that was the most disappointing part. That being said, I still overall enjoy the whole arc of the Mirror Universe. And then Georgiou, the Empress, she ends up coming back into the main timeline. We get a nice mention to, in episode 14, the Enterprise NX-01 and Archer, which at this point, all that stuff happened 100 years ago. So that was really cool. That was a really cool little continuity mention there. You know, to get a straight mention of Captain Archer in this show was really nice to hear. Also, Brendan has mentioned this before. I didn't want to feel like ripping him off, but I really like the design of Discovery outfits. It feels very much like a evolution of the Star Trek Enterprise uniforms, being a bit more militaristic. It actually looks all like the Mass Effect Admiral uniforms in Mass Effect 3. But, you know, and then eventually transitions to what we see in TOS. But I just thought it was a really cool design for their outfits. I think it looks good. And then episode 15, you know, Michael Burnham makes up with Tyler, and then they just make peace with the Klingons like that, and we're all good and ready for season. It just really rushed. It was a fine episode, but it just came out of nowhere. This end to the conflict that's been going on all season, to just have it end like that. Like, what? No, don't buy it. And then the Empress is just let go to go free, which will be a thing in an upcoming novel I'll be reviewing. 2 books, actually, by John Jackson Miller. So that'll be exciting, because he's a really good author in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, so I expect him to be really good in Star Trek as well. But that's pretty much it. Overall, I enjoyed this season a lot more than I expected to, because I've heard very mixed things. People said, yeah, it's pretty good. Or people saying, like, this is the worst thing ever. You know, so I expected it to be probably somewhere in the middle, but I'm more on the side of, no, this is good. It's not the greatest thing ever. There are a lot of flaws. But at the end of the day, I don't know, it still felt like Trek to me. So I think Burnham could use some work in it becoming more of an interesting character, because so far she's fine. I don't hate her or anything, but I like a lot of the other characters a lot more than her. Oh, and that Admiral lady, I forget her name, but she was really good too. I really enjoyed her sections. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna head out, yeah, see me when I review 2 books by John Jackson Miller before jumping to season 2 of Discovery. And don't worry, I'm still going to do all those Enterprise relaunch novels like I mentioned, but I'm going to wait till I'm caught up with the new shows, and then I'll jump back. Because I won't watch TOS before finishing those Enterprise novels. But anyway, yeah. Till next time. May the Force. Oopsie. Wrong outro. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye.